Scoop is back. It's the two of us. Parramatta Eels are up next, and there's a few men in colours, my good friend. And why don't we kick it off with the great Carty Party, mate? You've got some thoughts on the great Carty Party.
Yeah, he's down there in yellow. I don't think he's guaranteed 10 points of value. Fantastic, brilliant. Put him in your team option. But he's going to score better than he did last year, I reckon. As long as he gets a full time 80-minute role, doesn't have any of those sort of 50-minute games he had from time to time. He scores a lot better with Moses. He gets the ball more, runs more offloads. He just does more. I think, what did I do? In 2023, in non injury games, with Moses, I think he averaged 53. And then this last year, where the Eels were 15th, he still averaged like 51
Hmm.
when he was playing over 60 minutes at edge. So I think the Eels will do a little bit better than that this year. And yeah, he's priced at 44. I think he can hit 50. I don't think it's quite 10, but he's got value.
Yeah, I really like that. Those 2 good years of stats too. We're not just going off the 8 games or something like that. It's a good sample size there, especially in that 2023 when Bryce was going really well. It's an interesting team, isn't it, mate? It's a squad that came 15th last year, but when you look at it on paper, even losing Campbell Gillard, it's a fairly strong outfit. You can't really fault any of the positions apart from potentially the middle rotation without Regan this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I forgot how many late season injuries they had, especially with their middles. Like Paulo was missing for a huge chunk. Hopgood was missing for the last half of the year, and outside backs are just falling over and stuff like that. I had a look at around 26, 27, and there were some players who I didn't even remember playing for us. So it was. I think we're primed to do a little bit better than this year. Don't know if we'll make finals, but I reckon probably like 11th ish,
Yeah.
12th, something like that. All we need really to bring it home is we need something at hooker, and that might not happen this year. Could be 2026. We look at that.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, Hopgood's a massive in. Addo-Carr comes over. Zach Lomax comes over, which is massive news, but you lose your captain, mate. How big of a hole do you think that leaves?
Oh, I was really sad when the rumors started and then finally were confirmed. Look, if you're not an Eels fan, look, you probably have a lot of reasons to be annoyed by Gutho, but if you are an Eels fan, you understand that he gives it all for his team. So I think we will miss him. I think Iongi will be good, but we might flounder a little bit before he finds his feet. Hopefully some of the other guys can give him a bit of guidance and experience, and even some of those incoming outside backs like Lomax and Addo-Carr help him out a bit.
Yeah, I definitely think that'll help him out for sure. And Penisini's coming into his own as a more senior player in this team now after a good 2 to 3 years of action. And hopefully Addo-Carr can stay on the park, mate. But I suppose, yeah, not as ideal for you as a fan losing Gutho, but for fantasy fans, Isaiah Iongi could be delightful. But we have found out in Supercoach that he's come in at the cheap price. But in fantasy, that one game of 43, we're just hoping and praying that it doesn't affect his price too much, right?
Yeah, we've seen it in the past with certain players. It's affected them a fair bit, especially if they've played like two or three. But from what from what I can find and what I remember, there's been probably about three or four players who played one game and had a big one. And as long as it wasn't like a 60 or something, they've usually been priced about 25, 30.
Mm.
So I would expect to see him probably sitting around that high 300s, 400s sort of situation, and that'll still probably be enough.
Yeah, it'll still be okay, just not as fun. I was gonna, if we're going based on old prices, 320 was gonna be my like in between hope, but yeah, closer to 400 might be the worry. But mate, from what you know of him, you say that should be enough anyway. Should be good enough to still pick him. What are we expecting from him? You've got there a 40 average. What do we see in his New South Wales Cup and junior stats there?
Had a look at that the other night. He seems to be pretty solid in run meters, attack, and all that. He has a fair few negatives. So the Eels are a team that likes to drop a few balls, and adding Lomax to that doesn't help. So hopefully they can actually complete their sets this year. But as long as they can do that, I think that he can hit a 40 average, especially the last 2 years. He's hit high 30s and low 40s pretty easily, even with a couple of reduced minute games. So yeah, if the Eels can fire and he can attack a little bit, I see no reason why he can't hit about a 40.
Yep. Yeah, I'm expecting about a 41 from him, especially if he comes out in those trials and looks pretty good as well. And he's got some nice finishes either side if he can pass the ball, which we'll learn more in the next few months on him. If he can go to those wings in potentially Lomax, we could be in the centers as well. But Addo-Carr on that left hand side will be absolutely beautiful if that's how it plays out. Mate, in the centers there, I think you're a bit harsh on Lomax too. A lot of those errors are when he's no chance, well, he should be no chance of getting near the ball, and he somehow tries to go up and take it or bat it back or something like that. Yeah, his stats are very interesting with the errors, aren't they, for that? But he's a massive get. And do you see any improvement going to what I would say usually would be a better team? Not based on standings last year, but playing next to Dylan Brown and Moses. Do we see an improvement from Lomax, or is that kind of his peak at a 50?
Look, I find it really hard to know what it's going to do NRL wise because he kind of did a lot better at wing than he had previously done at centre. And well, he already in the Dragons team, you say possibly going to a better team, but I mean, he was already absolutely on fire. So
Hmm.
I'm keen to see what he can do in this outfit. And if he doesn't mess up and change up too much when he goes to centre, because his aerial game's absolutely insane. I'm mouth watering waiting to see Moses kick bombs to him. Yeah, 50, I don't think he'll hit that at centre. He's hit sort of low 40s at centre before. He'll probably be good. I just think he'll way too expensive to start the year.
Yeah. To me, I feel like he has to be on that right wing with Moses, doesn't he? It was beautiful in Origin, and he's likely to be left center in how this lines up, right?
Yeah, and that's what I don't get. Like he looked absolutely amazing there, and I thought I was watching Origin stuff. I'm just like, I cannot wait for him to score 40 tries off Moses' boot next year. And then he's like, no, I still want to play centre. And I'm like, why? You're doing,
Yeah.
you're like a Dally M winger pretty much. So yeah, well, I'll reserve my opinions until I see how he plays and how his form is this year. But yeah, keen to see how him and Addo-Carr fit into this lineup.
It'd be pretty fun left hand side though, to be fair, if you've got the crossfield kicks from Moses to Lomax there, but if you're going down that left hand side with Brown, with like hopefully Sean Lane in some decent form or Kelma Tuilagi there, and then you've got Lomax and Addo-Carr. That does sound pretty fun to go
Mm.
along with an improving Penisini on the other side. And mate, you've got him in highlight as well. Averaged 40.1 last year, and I imagine this will be pretty similar to Bryce Cartwright in terms of the quality that he comes out with when Moses is on the park.
Yeah, I looked at him and pretty much laughed because this year is identical to last year's situations within like half a point or something like that. Ended up averaging 40 overall for the year. Had a fair bit of time with Moses out. Averaged 46 both this year, both 2024 and 2023 with Moses. Just depends how much Moses stays fit, really, and bit of an awkward price to try and fit into your team if you're hoping to get him up there. Probably in another year where there's not as many centers floating around, you could probably have a stab. But when you've got guys like Jack Bird and a couple of potential Roosters centers that might be really cheap, I don't think you have to go for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there. There's a pick last year that Moses was there to begin, and even though Penisini had the couple of good games, it just takes that 125 or 30 early on, doesn't it, for a center to kind of just annoy you for spending that money. Whereas you've got guys with upside. If you spend a bit extra on a Teddy or a Ponga, these types of guys, it just spend that extra couple hundred and you get that benefit there. But obviously it depends, as you said, on if we do get the cheapies or we get decent value in that spot, like a Carraz last year. It was kind of the Penisini or Carraz pick, and Carraz kicked on, and Penisini kind of hung where he normally does around that 40. So yeah, very interesting, mate. And Mitch Moses probably expecting Lomax to goal kick if he doesn't goal kick and Moses keeps it, a 48.9 average is a lot lower than we've seen from him in the past. Talk us through Mitch Moses if we do see him kicking in the trials.
Yeah, if we do see him kicking in the trials, he immediately comes into strong consideration because, yeah, he's priced sub 50, and I think his last few seasons have been like 52, 59, 56, all that sort of stuff. I think he's not going to hit like 60 sort of a thing when the Eels were grand finalists in 2022. But yeah, mid 50s sounds about right for somebody like Moses where we know what he can do. So 5 points undervalued keeper who probably doesn't play Origin. That would be great, but he needs goals.
Yeah, it becomes very interesting. And the other one to think of is Gutho being a bit more of an attacking weapon slash having a bigger role in attack compared to what Iongi might have coming in early to the season. Do we see maybe a bump from Brown and Moses on the attacking side with probably an improvement in their outside backs as well?
I think they're going to have to take responsibility, that's for sure. Especially, I mean, they've got good ins. Iongi's good, and Lomax and Josh Addo-Carr experienced it as well to go along with that. But yeah, they're the guys who've been there for the longest. Need to say, hey, we're going to play like the Eels and stand up. So hopefully it goes that way and results in some good points for them.
Definitely. Mate, let's go to the hooking position. Joey Lussick killed me last year, and I never ended up with Brendan Hands for that decent stretch of games that he had. We've got both of them, a 26.7 average for Joey and a 29 for Brendan Hands. I'm probably in your boat there and expecting Brendan to start. Even if you were on the hand strain last year, is it something that probably would haunt you and you want to avoid the hooking position for Eels in general? Or if Hands is there and Lussick isn't to start, would you select him from ball one?
No, no, he's just gonna come in. He's Brad Arthur, oh, not Brad Arthur, but now not Brad Arthur. It just it was just in out, like Tom Starling and Danny Levi, and it just wrecked us a bit. I owned both of them, I think, at different stages. I think I bought Lussick when he just hit 500k, made about 15k more, and then fell off a cliff. So
Yep.
that wasn't fun. But yeah, the main thing that really scares me off even more is the fact that Hands played big minutes even with Lussick in the team sometimes. Like sometimes Lussick would just come in um, and then Hands would shift elsewhere or just play big minutes anyway. But it's really hard to track all of that when both of them are in that 9 and the 14. How do you know which one they're going to go for with a
Mm.
new coach and a new this? And I just don't like it. Not when they're priced at 30 already.
Yeah, and how often Lussick would be named at nine and then they'd switch it on, an hour before or whatever it is. That stuff's always fun. But guys, if you are interested in the private group this year, we have 5th, 8th, 9th, 21st, and 26th guys that placed last year. In there already, we've got heaps of good stuff going through. All the info is in the description if you want to get around that this year. If you've heard of it for a couple of years, this is the third year doing it. It's getting bigger and better every year. Come check it out. But our props, mate, we've got the loss of Campbell Gillard. But we do have a couple of one big gain in Mr. Jack Williams. I almost said Jack Edwards. I'm still in Big Bash mode. You've got him in there on the bench. They've got Maddo still there. Sean Lane, you've got on the bench as well. He can play middle. Madison can play edge and middle. Jack Williams is obviously a middle there, but not a out and out starting front rower as yet. You've got offhand Gower who has split a lot of time between bench, big minute guy, 15-minute guy, and then you got Junior who's the mainstay. How do we see this front row rotation going?
It's going to be interesting because it's going to depend on really how they use Sean Lane, I'd say. Tuilagi took over at the back end of last year, and Lane went to interchange and also into the middle. So it's going to really depend on how much they actually use him and whether they decide that Matto is in or out of favour, like he was at times last year.
And every other
I don't
year.
know what he's annoyed other people with, but we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, you're right. There aren't any out and out props there. There's a solid chance that I guess if Hands was to play 80, You could put him in, take Lussick out, maybe put like a Werner Greg in, something like that. But yeah, there's not going to be tons and tons of minutes to go around unless they take minutes off one of the edges, which is quite possible with both Madison and Sean Lane around. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know whether that's the way they'll go, but based on how they finished last year.
Yeah, if it does feel like a setup there where you probably have to do an 80 and a 60 for the edges, it'd be hard to get 80 and 80 out of both of them unless you're playing these forwards low minutes, or you do have the utility on the bench, which if Joey isn't there, who would you have as that utility?
Oh, I don't mind Matto being on the bench, and he's not exactly a utility, but he can cover a range of different stuff.
Yeah.
Carty can go a few places. I think, especially if it's in the pack, a few players can go different places. But yeah, we've lost a few. So we've got no Matt Arthur, we've got no Arzi, we've got no Zach Sini. Wave goodbye to him. His fantasy career is possibly over.
Morgan Harper.
So it would be very interesting if like a Dean Hawkins maybe was sitting on the bench as like a utility, but I don't know.
You're right though with Matto, he obviously played six at times last year as well, so they've got that coverage and he can go back row, he can play middle, he can you can shift Bryce out to edge or yeah, Matto's fit enough for that as well. So yeah, maybe you do just roll in with the increased amount of forwards, but don't know why it just jogged me back to the first 2 to 3 games in 2023 when Hopgood came on the scene, and they just
Oh, how good.
ran him for 80 minutes and Junior and RCG for over 60, and they didn't play Makatoa, and like they had all these forwards there and they just didn't even use them and they just
That's
gassed everyone out.
right. Yeah.
What a time.
We had all these guys like, oh, they'll probably play 30 minutes and they've got a pretty high PPM and they'll probably be a slow burn, and then none of them worked.
Didn't even play, yeah. That Makatoa one was hilarious, but not if you bought him, that's for sure. But I thankfully was not on that train. So yeah, with Sean Lane, mate, I thought he actually played better through the middle last year. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think he isn't as mobile as he needs to be at edge anymore and makes a better middle these days. So I
Mm.
think he'll stay in that role. But whether he plays a little bit of edge, but mostly middle, and like Tuilagi or Carty chops a few minutes, that could be an option. But
Mm.
yeah, I think he's going to stay in the middle.
You hope that he gets to back some of that form because he was spectacular, and I think he can be a game changer like he was, a couple of years ago when you guys made the final. But while we're here, mate, Kelma Tuilagi, if he does get that start, 60 to 80 minutes, let's just say it is at 80 minutes, it's a fairly decent slam dunk, isn't it?
Yeah, he switched back there at the back end of last year. I remember buying him. I think it was about Origin time, and then he got injured and went out, and then I forgot about him. And instead of being 250K, I look at him 6 weeks after he came back, and it's like, oh wait, he's actually 500K now. So he's priced pretty cheap as a result of those small interchange games and stuff. So he's priced at 30. If you've got a starting edge playing 80, it's pretty easy to get 40. He can get mid 40s probably.
Hmm.
60 minutes probably will be a little bit of value, maybe not enough. 80 minutes, easy.
Yeah, it's just be if you've got Lane and Maddo named on the bench there, do you find it hard pressed for him to get the 80? Like, it would be scary to buy him.
It is scary. It's a bit like there's another team. It's almost like a Cowboy situation, hey, where there's a lot of players that probably will take away some of those minutes other from the other edge, and maybe even a Raiders situation. Does Hosking lose minutes? And
Hmm.
you don't know. But yeah, I'd say there is a solid chance one of them does. I just don't know who they'd probably go for. It might even be Carty because he did have a couple of 50, 60-minute games last year. Not many, but maybe that's the way they go.
And how many games did you have with, is it Jason Riles as coach now, right? Is
Yes.
that with you guys? Did he have many games or did they have assistant coach in there for a bit at the end of the season?
And as assistant coach for a while, I can't. When did he come in exactly?
I'll have to check that out actually
Yeah,
to see if we've got a general idea on how he's going to run things as well. But obviously the trials are going to be massive for that with the new coaches, isn't it? So Jermaine Hopgood, mate, to finish this video off, and then a little bit on the draw. Came in obviously a lot of back problems last year, and did still average a 55.7 after being a tick higher than that, up near 60 the year before. With RCG going, do you think the minutes are kind of uh, it's probably harder to get him sort of above that 60 minute mark and really get him back to that 60 point scoring, Hopgood?
the only way that it'll happen, as you said, uh, as we were alluding to before, is probably the minutes won't work unless one of those edges doesn't play 80. There was talk or something going around a few weeks ago saying that Riles or the word Hopgood would be looking to play more minutes this year, and that'd be great. But I haven't really seen any follow up to that. And yeah, you've got to probably see what happens in trials and how they use the edges to start the year to know whether that's going to be the case. But if that was going to happen, man, that'd be really nice. Hey, return of
Mm.
low 60s Hopgood.
Yeah, well, when you've got no other middle, like even Junior, you'd imagine his minutes drop each year as he gets a little bit older. So Hopgood is the biggest minute guy, and yeah, you couldn't expect anything under 60 unless he's still working his way back from injury. But he's had a long time out, obviously there. So Hopgood feels like a very safe pick to me, especially
Yeah,
with their first playing the first 7 games at least. Like you don't have to worry about like a round 3 bye or something like that. You're probably going to be
yeah.
priced
I think
a little bit less, hey, than some of the other top guns closer to
yeah.
that Tarpany range. And I suppose you look at would you want Hopgood or Tarpany? That's probably the big question.
Hmm. I think some of the chat around that potential Hopgood minutes thing was that he would play prop, which would possibly
Oh
solve
wow.
some of those prop minutes on the bench and all that. Maybe Offer would go bench and somebody else would go lock. That might help out with the pure prop version of things. But yeah, I haven't seen any follow up on that at all. So I don't know whether that was a thing Riles said 4 weeks ago and has changed his mind, or whether that's a thing that actually happened, or whether it's just a rumor. But yeah, keen to see if he does line up in the props.
Yeah, and then you've got Offengawi and Jack Williams at 36 and 37. There is their averages. Do we see Jack having a little bit of a bump? His PPM's pretty nice, and Offengawi, when he does get big minutes, he can score well. Who would you prefer, and who do you think gets more minutes at the moment? You've got Offer with 35 and Williams with 30. Is there any way that Jack builds on that, do you think?
I definitely think Jack can play more minutes. It's just how this team
Yeah, where?
shuffles at the moment. There's a few players every year when we're doing these predictions is like, oh, how do we give all these guys the minutes that they need? Because yeah, um, it was who was the team we just did, the Sharks. A lot of those guys were doing 35, 40, 45 minutes. It's like, how do we give them all that
Mm,
without turning one of them into a 15-minute guy? So I think if that does happen, Jack Williams would be guy to get back to sort of 40, 45 minutes because he can easily play that.
yeah.
Maybe offer Hengawi turns into smaller minutes. But
Mm.
at this stage, I don't think they present any real value or upside to where they're currently priced. I think it's probably more equal or slightly lower rather than up.
Yeah. We'll probably have to take the 20 away from one of those edges, wouldn't we? It'd be the only way it probably makes a bit more sense because, yeah, Jack's come over and probably, I want to push into more of a starting role, I'd say, like as to why he would leave the
Mm,
Sharks, apart from obviously them signing AFB and because he was in that 40 to 45 minute role doing a great job, I think. He's a very interesting player and I think he's a good get for you guys losing RCG.
mm. Yeah, it'll be interesting if Hopgood did go to prop, maybe he's the lock for 45 minutes.
Mm. Yeah, well, someone would have to take it, and who knows if it'd be matter or not. That's for sure. But mate, they do.
I've been waiting for ages for him to do something fantasy relevant because when he does, he can fly. He's like the Tom Starling of the middles.
Oh yeah, that's right. If you give Matto 80 minutes anyway, but at 6, it's a 55 plus. He's an impressive man. He gets involved. That's for sure. Running the footy. And that draw, mate, I think personally, I've kind of mentioned a little bit, but I think you're buying Eels from round 1 if you're getting them, or it's round 9, so you've got them for that first 2 buys there around 12 and 13. How do you see the Eels and their draw from a quality of team perspective?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a clean run until about week 8, which is probably when you want to be selling your peaked cash cows anyway, or a little bit before then. That works out. Round 9, you're probably looking for sort of guys to get you through Origin a little bit instead of your money makers because they would have settled into their roles and made their cash by then, unless they're sort of doing okay and holding on to their value. So yeah, I think it'll mostly be from round 1. I would like to finish the year with somebody like a Hopgood potentially, but yeah, Penrith in round 19, Brisbane in round 21, Melbourne in round 22. That's not the nicest start to a time where you want to be buying somebody like that.
Yeah, definitely. And then a reasonable end to the season there. And yeah, you've got guys like Moses, guys like Lomax, Hopgood, depending if there's injuries, it could be Madison's and Dylan Brown's and these types of guys. So we'll see how long Iongi sticks in our side, hey? Will it be just the first 7 rounds? Will it be 2 weeks? Will it be all the way through until round 15? That'll be an interesting one as well. And obviously what he ends up being priced at will be fun as well. But mate, good luck to your Eels this year. I think we might see a little switcheroo with the Eels and the Cows, but we'll see how that one goes, eh?